military offensive was launched by the National Liberation Front simultaneously in 140 cities and towns throughout South Vietnam and took the U.S. military and its puppet forces completely by surprise. According to the Australian journalist Wilfred Burchett, quote, the NLF forces, without any modern means of transportation or communications, attacked almost every major military and administrative installation in South Vietnam in complete secrecy under the noses of the most sophisticated military machine that has ever taken the field. Among the objectives attacked were all 4 zonal headquarters of the Saigon Army, 8 out of 11 divisional headquarters, and 2 American Army field headquarters. Among the 18 major targets attacked in Saigon itself were the U.S. Embassy, the Presidential Palace, the Joint U.S. Saigon Armed Forces Headquarters, and the South Vietnam Naval Headquarters. In Hue, on January 31st, the Liberation Forces entered the city, hoisted the NLF flag on the main tower of the imperial city, and freed 2,000 prisoners. Fierce fighting continued in Hue for a month until the U.S. resorted to massive bombing and completely destroyed the city to retake it. While the Pentagon and President Johnson declared the offensive a failure, it completely exposed the bankruptcy of the puppet regime in Saigon and the U.S. military in Vietnam. It was a dramatic illustration of the popular character of the Vietnamese liberation struggle and showed the strength of the resistance at a time when U.S. military leaders were promising a quick victory in the war and boasting that the NLF was on the run. Instead, U.S. General Westmoreland, who was in charge of the war effort for the Pentagon, was relieved of his command, and within months, President Johnson announced that he would not run for re-election. Washington was forced, in fact, to agree to hold discussions with the Vietnamese on ending the war as massive anti-war demonstrations spread in the U.S. So we want to commemorate the Vietnamese struggle tonight with 2 talks. The first will be by Andy Stapp, the founder of the American Servicemen's Union, or ASU. And as many of you know, ASU was a militant anti-war organization of GIs during the Vietnam War. Andy was court-martialed at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, for opposing the war in Vietnam. And we met Andy through the youth group of Workers' World Party, Youth Against War and Fascism, which defended Andy in his struggle and then went on to support and help build the ASU. It is worth noting here that YOF, Youth Against War and Fascism, was the first organization to call a demonstration against the Vietnam War in 1962, when President Kennedy sent in 12,000 so-called advisors to Vietnam to prop up the puppet regime of Ngo Dinh Diem in the South. We are proud to say that President Ho Chi Minh heard of the YOF demonstration at that time and told a reporter visiting in North Vietnam that this was the kind of solidarity the Vietnamese needed in their struggle. A few years later, Comrade Deirdre Griswold, who is now the editor of Workers' World newspaper, was sent as a representative of YOF to work with the Bertrand Russell War Crimes Tribunal that indicted the U.S. for war crimes in Vietnam. Our party's history is deeply connected to the struggle against the war in Vietnam, and so we are proud to hold this forum tonight to kind of relay and go over some of that history. Before we do that, well, before we hear from Andy, we're going to have a PowerPoint presentation by John Catt, and he's going to come up and John Catt, managing editor of Workers' World newspaper.